will be posting the video online after the event. So we've started recording now. For those that didn't join us in our previous town halls, I want to let you know that those recordings are currently available on our website. So we have a town hall from fall 2022, which was transition overview, some early adopter feedback from initial surveys that we did about the use of Canvas, and highlighting some notable Canvas features. So that's a good place to get started if you want to get some of that basic information. You can watch that video. In winter, we did a town hall that kind of highlighted the bulk migration of courses from GauchoSpace to Canvas, an overview of navigating Canvas, and some getting started tips on moving from GauchoSpace to Canvas. These are on our website, canvas.ucsb.edu/transition. So today's agenda, I'm going to talk a little more about the timeline for GauchoSpace's decommissioning and preserving course materials. I'll highlight some of the support resources that are available for Canvas, and then we'll get into the main part of our town hall, which is a Q&A session with some faculty kind of responses on kind of using Canvas this year in their courses. And then we'll have time at the end for open Q&A from the audience. So any questions that you have, please feel free to submit them using the Q&A feature at any time during the conversation. We will save them till the end, but we will try to address all the questions that come in. So submit them now if you have them, or anytime during the transition. All right, so first I want to talk about the timeline for GauchoSpace decommissioning and preserving historical course materials. So this first slide gives you an overview of where we've started and where we've come in terms of the Canvas adoption. So we did pilots in spring and summer of 2022. And then in fall, we opened it up for general use. We had 191 courses in Canvas compared to 1,271 in GauchoSpace. And then in the winter, we saw a nice uptick of Canvas use, 511 courses to 1018 in GauchoSpace, about a third Canvas. But we're almost at half during this spring quarter. So 723 courses in Canvas, and then 774 in GauchoSpace. I'll talk more about the summer next, but we kind of anticipate about 50 courses will ask for exceptions to use GauchoSpace, and then most courses are going to be using Canvas during summer sessions. And then looking forward, fall 2023, we're going to have all courses that are using the LMS using Canvas, and that's when GauchoSpace is going to be decommissioned, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So next steps for summer. If you're teaching in the summer, you can create your courses now, but you create them in GauchoSpace still. We have the course site creator functionality that's going to be coming into Canvas soon. But if you want to get started on building your course for summer, you can create a course in Canvas just by logging into GauchoSpace and using the site creator on your dashboard if you're an instructor of record in the registrar data. If you think you should see a course because you're an instructor, but it's not listed there, reach out to us. We may have data that you're teaching that course that's not in the registrar data. Now, if you're interested in or need to remain in GauchoSpace during the summer, you can submit an exception request on our website, canvas.ucsb.edu/transition. There's information about submitting that request. So some people need more time to get going on Canvas, or for various reasons, you can actually ask us for a request. We're asking that those get submitted by June 1st, 2023. And then in fall, all courses will be in Canvas. We'll turn on the course site creator functionality in Canvas sort of at the end of this quarter for instructors to be able to start building their fall courses. So I want to highlight the ways in which we are preserving GauchoSpace materials. So first, we have 2 years of courses that we're migrating automatically, requiring no instructor involvement from GauchoSpace to Canvas. So all academic courses taught on GauchoSpace from summer 2021 through spring 2023 will be migrated automatically. We've actually migrated already all summer 2021 through summer 2022 courses. So the remaining academic year courses on GauchoSpace, fall, winter, and spring of this year, Those will be migrated on August 1st. They'll show up on your dashboard. So if you're looking for any of those courses to get started for your fall course, they'll be there on August 1st. So those courses will just be moved over automatically. You won't need to do anything other than you can pull those materials into future courses, either this coming academic year or anytime in the future. Second, we're standing up what we're calling an administrative archive, which is going to house all GauchoSpace courses dating back to summer 2015. So it's an administrative archive because it's something that we'll have access to. You won't be able to directly log in and access those things, but we will be able to migrate any of those materials into Canvas for you at a future date. So you just need to submit a request to us. For example, I'm teaching a course I haven't taught since fall 2017, something that we didn't automatically migrate to Canvas. Just submit a request and we can migrate that course that was taught on GauchoSpace into Canvas so you can use those course materials. Now, I want to highlight ways in which you can preserve your GauchoSpace materials. So first off, if there are courses prior to summer 2015 in our GauchoSpace archives that you haven't taught since that time it was taught there, you might want to consider downloading those course materials, either the syllabi or other course materials for those courses, or you can do a backup of that course and create an archive file that you can just save, and you can import that file into future courses. So most courses you've probably taught or kind of frequently in the years in between 2015 and now. But if there are courses that you haven't taught or anything that you want to preserve, you can back up those materials or download them for your personal storage. And just reach out to us if you need any assistance, either backing up a course site or finding any of your old courses. So GauchoSpace decommissioning, on December 1st, 2023, we'll be turning off access to GauchoSpace and the GauchoSpace archives. So you will no longer be able to access GauchoSpace or those archives. And this is why those materials prior to summer 2015 are important for you to preserve if you want to preserve them. Our administrative archive is only going to house courses going back to summer 2015. Anything prior to that, you should save yourself if you would like to keep those materials. All right, so I want to highlight now just some of the support resources and give you kind of a glimpse of our upcoming trainings that we have through fall quarter. So your first stop for support is the canvas.ucsb.edu website. You can see here there are 4 tabs on the website. The main login page is the one that you'll land on when you go to the website, but you can also access the support tab, which has all of our upcoming trainings and other ways in which you can get support. The integrations tab, which has information about integrating third-party tools. For example, if you're using a textbook publisher tool and you want to get that integrated into Canvas, we have a new process for that was designed as part of the transition to Canvas. Or any information about the transition itself, FAQs about what's happening in the timeline, or on the transition tab. Second, we have 24/7 support, which is offered by Instructor, the company that supports Canvas, and that's phone, chat, or email that you can go to Canvas. This is best used kind of if it's the evening and you don't want to wait for a response from our support staff in the morning or on the weekend in particular, and also really useful for native Canvas tools or features. So if you're trying to figure out how to get an assignment set up in Canvas or working on a quiz and you have some questions about setting up your quiz, this support is really useful. If you have questions more about kind of your enrollment, or you're not seeing students in your course that you expect that should be there, for example, Canvas won't really be able to help you with that, and you should come to help@collaborate.ucsb.edu for that. So our support site also includes on-demand videos. We're also willing to do department-specific trainings. We've done a number this quarter. If there's any interest in doing any in September, for example, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to schedule something. We have UCSB-specific and Canvas documentation linked from our website. We also have best practices and common pitfalls, and we're going to be expanding that area in particular. And we're willing to do one-on-one consultations. So if you need technical support or pedagogical assistance, please reach out. We'll be happy to help. So upcoming campus-wide training opportunities, we have 28 workshops that we have scheduled from now through fall 2023. There were more than I could list on this slide, so I just kind of gave you kind of an overview. And you can see all of these at canvas.ucsb.edu/support. Some of the topics include introductory basics, course flow with modules, grading and feedback, creating quizzes, creating assignments, and then we have other more advanced workshops as well. So again, please submit questions anytime during this conversation using the Q&A feature. And at the end, we'll leave some time to answer your questions. But we're going to turn over now to a conversation with three of our instructors, Kate Taylor, Bruce Bimber, and Keith Corona. And I will stop sharing now, and so we can get into that conversation.
All right, so as Brett mentioned, today we're joined by Kate Taylor, Associate Professor of Sociology. Kate began using Canvas for her UCSB courses starting in summer 2022. We're also joined by Bruce Bimber, Professor of Political Science. Bruce began using Canvas for his courses starting in fall 2022. And then lastly, we're joined by Keith Corona, continuing lecturer in English for multilingual students in the Department of Linguistics. Keith was in our very beginning kind of intro group starting in spring 2022, so been using Canvas for over a year now. So we're going to ask our instructors here just a series of questions to kind of get their feedback and their kind of use cases of coming from GauchoSpace and starting to use Canvas. So I'll start with first question. We'll go to you, Kate, and then we'll move to each of you. But what was your first impression of using and beginning using Canvas?
So I started using it, I guess, last summer, and I actually had used Canvas before I came to UCSB though. So my first impression of using it last summer was that I liked it. I find it, and I had wanted to use it because I liked it better than GauchoSpace because I'd used it before. So I guess I would say, like, in general, I find Canvas way more intuitive than GauchoSpace, like just sort of basic everyday functionality of like organizing a course, putting up assignments, that kind of stuff. I don't have to like look through a manual or technical support to do these kind of basic things. It's just a little more intuitive. It's easier to stay organized, and also the students like it way better. The students are more experienced with it. Most of them have used Canvas before, at least in my department in sociology. A lot of them are transfer students. They've used it at the city college, or they even use it in the K-12 context too. So I find it more intuitive. The students 100% prefer it. At least our students in sociology do.
Great, thank you. Keith, if you can speak to your first impression using Canvas.
Yeah, first, when I began to use Canvas, the user interface stood out. It felt a bit more modern, so to speak. The organizing structure is a little bit easier to understand, to create some kind of flow and organization. You have many opportunities to do different structures that you choose to do. And it felt a little bit easier to house more activities. So we teach academic writing. It felt easier to house everything within Canvas rather than having to link to external tools all the time.
And Bruce.
Yeah, I'll say that I was at first a little suspicious because it's commercial software, not open source, and I like open source software. But I found that those kind of vague concerns were not founded. It's really mature software that works well, and I like it. I agree with what's being said. I will say that when I first tried to set up my class in it, I expected to be able to figure it out on my own with no training, because I usually can do that with a new tool. And I only got so far, and I realized I actually had to have some training. It was not entirely clear to me how to do everything. So, but it was good to have muddled around on my own, because by the time I went to the training, I had a list of questions particularly about the grades. And so I got a lot out of the 1 hour training that pretty much took care of it. So yeah, I like it. I'm happy to make the transition.
Great, thank you.
So next question here is, for you, what are some of the biggest differences in using Canvas versus GauchoSpace? So we'll start with you, Keith.
All right. So as I mentioned before, the UI, the user interface, was a big thing for me. And just to have a little tidbit of information or background, I have used Canvas primarily for teaching online, not remote courses, but online courses. So it's a little bit different than using it in the face-to-face. I have done that as well, but not as much. As I mentioned, the navigation through the information, so structuring information on Canvas, it's a little bit easier. And also I haven't really tested the boundaries, but just to jump in and put things on and get going in a sense that feels a bit more professional, it's a little bit easier to jump in there. Now, going from like a beginner or novice to intermediate and above, that might take some more work, but just to get in, it doesn't seem like there's too big of a learning curve. When with GauchoSpace, for a lot of people, it might have been the first thing they've used, or it's a little bit rougher to get in at the start. Canvas seems to be jumping in. You can jump in and get going really quickly, and yeah, that's about it.
Great. Bruce, what about you? What are some of the biggest differences that you faced in using Canvas versus GauchoSpace?
Well, I should say first, I find I can do the same things. So it's not that, oh my gosh, here's this tool that I can now use that enables me to do something I couldn't before. That may be there, but if so, I haven't found it. It's just cleaner and quicker and more intuitive. And I find I spend a lot less time formatting HTML and getting the fonts to look right and so on. I like to have a really clean site, and I pay attention to how students are going to navigate. And that I think is much cleaner. Particularly if I was cutting and pasting material into GauchoSpace, I spent an inordinate amount of time trying to get it to look the way I wanted to. And I don't do that at all in Canvas. And one reason is that there's not so many options. Some of the fonts are not controllable. You have to accept what they give you. So there is there's sort of less room to go astray, I guess. But I don't mind that trade-off at all. It's worth it.
Great. And what about you, Kate?
I would say I would echo the comments of Bruce and Keith about this. I think it's definitely more intuitive. It looks more professional, and I say that not to say like, oh, we need to be professionalizing ourselves as faculty necessarily, exactly, but more that I do think it's easier for the students because it's sort of uniform. Like you can do a lot of things on it, but it creates a site it creates a website for your course that looks really uniform, and so you can, like, whether it's online or in person, which I've done both with Canvas, like you can kind of just have them walk through things. It's really obvious to them what you can make. It's very easy to make it obvious to them what they're supposed to do without a lot of, like, I don't know how to use HTML, and I don't know how to use, like, I'm not very fancy with the computer stuff. So I can just do it pretty easily. I will say, so it's way more intuitive, but the truth is, like, I was using GauchoSpace before, and it does take some work to transition. Of course, there's some ramp up. My feeling about that as a professor and who's going to be here for a while is absolutely a good investment. Yeah, it's every quarter when I use it, it takes a little more time. Oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? But like with GauchoSpace, it felt like I was learning things all the time, and then I would forget them because they weren't intuitive in GauchoSpace. With Canvas, it's like every so often I have to learn something new. Every time I put a new course in there, I have to kind of reorganize it. But then I don't know, the information of how to do it sticks in my head because the interface is so much more intuitive. So it's a good investment, I think. It's not, for me, it wasn't the case that I could just like get in there and do it. Similar, I guess, what Bruce was saying, but once I did do it, it feels like, okay, now this is way easier than Canvas was. But it took a little bit of ramp up, but than GauchoSpace was, excuse me. And the other thing I'll say that specifically is different, I think the discussion boards are way better. Like, I could not use discussion boards on Canvas. I'm sure there was a way to do it. I know people were doing it, but it just didn't, it was really not intuitive. It was hard to grade them. on Canvas, I mean, sorry, I keep saying the wrong thing. On GauchoSpace, I couldn't use discussion boards, but on Canvas, I quite easily started using them. Very intuitive. My TA grades the students. It goes right into the grade book. Again, maybe you could do this on Canvas, but I could not figure out how to do it. It wasn't intuitive to me. So I think the discussion boards are not perfect. I have some things I want to change, but mostly they're just way better than GauchoSpace, which I think is a great tool for these students who are growing up doing everything, discussing things online. It's been really helpful. Yeah.
So this touches on, I think, some feedback you each have given, but if you can single out one or a couple things that you wish you would have known ahead of time before you transitioned from GauchoSpace to Canvas. So something you wish you had known as you made that transition. I'll start with Bruce.
Yeah, I wish I had known more, put more time into understanding how grading works, how the grading tool works. And I might be a little bit sort of idiosyncratic or old-fashioned, but because I had, even in GauchoSpace, I had always maintained my grades in a spreadsheet because I have so much control over what I'm doing. And I realized that that doesn't work so well in Canvas, and particularly for the students who have been using Canvas, they're expecting to see their live grade developing across the term, and that means dealing with the grade book in a new way. And it took me a couple of courses to get it figured out, and I still am not super confident, particularly about weighting of things, and an item that you're going to grade can fit in a category of grades. And I just needed to have put more time into that. I think I could have done myself and the students a service. The other thing that I didn't realize until I'd been using it for a time or two is that you can really usefully think about it as a database where you have a folder for your slides if you're going to post them, a folder for images, a folder for assignments, a folder for exams. And you can build all that without having the chronology of your syllabus, and then go to your syllabus and just link to the things in the folder. I think that, I mean, you can do that in GauchoSpace as well, but I think Canvas really delivers a return if you think about the class that way, rather than here's week 1, what do I want to stick in there? Here's week 2. Rather, you've got a database of all the resources you're going to use, and then you link to those. So I'm still trying to get better at that, but that's something I could have done from the beginning, I think.
And Kate, how about you? Something you wished you had known ahead of time?
Actually, kind of building off what Bruce said, I just kind of realized recently I don't need a syllabus anymore. Like, I don't know what to do about it because my department wants to like archive my syllabi and stuff, but like I can just put the whole thing in order on Canvas. So I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to deal with that situation that I don't have a PDF to give them, but I just took my syllabus off this quarter because it's all just, so I think you could do it either way, Bruce.
Yeah.
I think either way works. That's nice. Canvas, has that flexibility, but I'm starting to, I'm realizing just now, like, I'm not sure I'm going to use a syllabus in the traditional sense anymore. I'm just going to let the students work through the modules. So that's something new I'm dealing with. I'm not saying everybody should just jump in and get rid of their syllabus. I think it would have to be a moment of intuitively it makes sense for the way you're teaching, but I'm realizing you can do that. The other thing I would say is I do echo Bruce's, the grade book is not, I'm still emailing Gus about this. I still am struggling with the grade book, but so there's a problem with it. I don't understand how to use it exactly right. The same issues Bruce is having, but I still think it's way better than GauchoSpace. Like, I don't want to do my grades in an Excel sheet. I want my students to see the grades as they go along. I think that's better for the students to understand where their grade's progressing. And so Canvas is still better than GauchoSpace and better than, to me, than an Excel sheet. I'm not saying you shouldn't do your grades that. That's just for me how I prefer it. To see that have the students be able to, Canvas has the functionality to allow students to see the grades as they go. And that, I don't know quite how to use it yet, but that I think is really useful. And so maybe, I guess, learning that in advance, but I don't understand it still yet. I'm still working on it. So
yeah, the graded book is definitely where we see the most support needs, and definitely where we see the best need for like a one-on-one consultation is always
Maybe
the
I should
best.
do that. But the thing is, I think I will reiterate that, like, this is not the question you asked, but like I will reiterate though that it's still better than the other options. Like, I think it's just difficult to make a learning management system that everybody can use right away. But this is still more intuitive than GauchoSpace, I think, by a mile. So I don't know. That's my feeling about it.
Great, thank you. And Keith, something you wish you had known ahead of time.
Maybe not so much that I wish I would have known, but had there been like, had I been able to access some course sites that had already been built from specifically from my department or departments like that, that would have been nice, just to kind of give me ideas of what's possible and what to do. Because when I first jumped in, I literally just put what I had on GauchoSpace into Canvas, and I've kind of just gone with that route, haven't tweaked too much. And I wish that I would have had a little bit more time before getting in, because it was like a week before I knew that I was going to use Canvas, and I like to read documentation. So that's one thing that I wish that I could have gotten into a little bit more. And one thing that I'm still very curious about, because it just really is on my mind, is how are students using this Canvas? Because students are using it on their I mean, I use it on my laptop, but how many of them are using it on their laptop versus a tablet versus using the app on their phone or on their tablet? How are they accessing the information? Because it might be a great tool for me to use, and I like the UI and it's great to do this, but I'm not the user. I want to know how my student is using it. So that's something that I'm interested in still.
So did you use any integrated tools, so things like GauchoCast, Zoom, or Gradescope in your teaching? And if so, how did the integrations work? And if you use them in GauchoSpace, maybe comparing that. So we'll start with Kate.
GauchoSpace, GauchoCast. No, I've never used any of those in Canvas.
Yeah.
No, I've never used those actually. So
No.
that's no.
Yeah, that's good to know. So you found all of the functionality that you're looking for is available in Canvas. You haven't had to go to some of these other things like GauchoCast for video uploads or Zoom.
No, my video uploads were done by somebody in LSIT helped me. Where are the video? I don't, maybe they are in you know what? I think they are in GauchoCast. Sorry, I think I did do this. I think it is a long time ago. Sometimes I forget where things come from. Yeah, I think I did. I think my videos are, I have some videos of myself that are from GauchoCast in Canvas. That's how that works, right? Yeah, that's how so I have used GauchoCast.
Okay.
And I've used it I did use it in GauchoSpace too. I can't even remember how I did that. Apparently it wasn't that bad because I don't have terrible memories of it. It's in there and it's working fine.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. What about you, Keith? Any integrated tools that you're using in Canvas?
Yeah, GauchoCast specifically to embed videos into primarily the assignment or discussion board tools. Zoom, I haven't used it as the embed inside of Canvas. I've just used it to link outside onto the Zoom application. And I did attempt in the very first quarter, so this was like a year ago, to embed or to utilize the Google Drive option, and it didn't pan out. I couldn't figure it out, or it wasn't ready at the time, and I haven't really revisited it since. But I've noticed that it's kind of like an iframe inside of the LMS right now, and for me, for the uses that I would use for our class, we wouldn't utilize that. So I haven't had to do that, but those are the great GauchoCast embedding. Maybe sometimes a YouTube embed, but same thing. You could do this in GauchoSpace. That's it.
Perfect. And Bruce, what about you?
Yeah, let's see. I've used Zoom just outside on its own. I have used GauchoCast, and I was delighted to find that it works the same way as in GauchoSpace. I was afraid, oh no, how am I going to do this? But it's pretty much just the same thing. I have not used Gradescope. I'm not even sure what it is. It's separate than Grades, and I'd actually be interested to hear what you can do, and particularly if it's any better than the Grades. I also wanted to use the embedded Google Drive and failed. I had my students build a wiki together. So I had an entire class working on wiki entries, and I couldn't make it work to my satisfaction and feel I was in control of what was happening. So I just moved the thing over to my own Google Drive outside of Canvas and linked to it, and that worked fine. So yeah, that's my experience.
Good to hear. Yeah, Gradescope is not grades particularly. It's a way to submit assignments. They can be bubble sheets, they can be handwritten, like lab reports or math homework. And there's some grouping where you can, it says all your students submitted like the same kind of math step, and you can grade that, and then it allocates grades appropriately. So it's just another way for students to submit assignments outside of Canvas assignments. But very helpful.
So I'll take the next one. So in the course of teaching in Canvas, hoping you each could talk to a little bit about what you heard from your students and how they kind of adopted the platform. So I'll start with Keith. I think you mentioned you'd like to hear more of this, but can you speak to what your students reported back to you?
Yeah, let me just check my notes. Basically, I've been conducting my own surveys and whatnot, and it's been well received overall. There have been some students that are resistant to it there, and I don't know, again, their particular situation where maybe my course was the only Canvas course and they were accessing GauchoSpace, and then they had to go over and it was like, man, I don't really like this. But a lot of people did comment and leave feedback about how they appreciate Canvas and how they like the user interface again, and how they like how clear it seems to be. But I didn't get any data about how they use it, if they're using it on their what device. So generally positive.
Great. And Bruce, any feedback from your students?
Yeah, very similar. They didn't really have a lot to say about it. Many of them had used it before in high school or in community college. In fact, the first quarter that I used it was fall in an upper division class, and I had some incoming students from a community college who had used it and I hadn't yet. And so I figured I have to really get up on my game right away because they know more than I do. And they, in particular, had expectations about following their grades along, to go back to that thing, having done that before. And I'll also say I'm a parent of a high school student now who uses Canvas, and I'm learning a lot about how he depends on it for telling him what to do when, and looking at how his grades are doing and so on. I see how important, how integrated it becomes for them. But I had no standing complaints, and I expected people would be complaining who were GauchoSpace users and how do they use Canvas, but not at all. I was quite surprised.
And Kate, any feedback from your students?
100% the same as Bruce. They're just using it. They've been using it from the beginning. They're used to it. They like it better. Like, I mean, I didn't do formal surveys like Keith, so I don't know if there were some outliers who maybe would have said something different in a survey, but yeah, I'm not saying or anything but positive feedback from them. And I find as like what Bruce was saying about how they can follow their grades along, like I find as a teacher, I mean, maybe to some degree we're holding their hands too much, but I find as a teacher, it's just easier. Like we're not spending so much time like talking them through their grades. We're able to spend more time talking about the course material because there's not so much grade anxiety because they know exactly where they stand. I mean, again, I haven't figured out how to use it exactly right, but they have a much better sense of where they stand than they did when I was using GauchoSpace. So we're not having to like spend office hours helping compute their grades. Instead, we can say like, you can see what your grade is. Let's talk about the course material. I find that better, and the students seem less anxious too. So that's yeah.
Could I add something in response to that?
Yeah.
I find that same thing to be true generally about course administration. Sort of when is what due? When should we start on this assignment? I get very little of that. It's almost kind of eerie. I just go in and teach the content, and if they come to office hours, they want to talk about content, and there's just not so many transaction costs with how the course runs. It's quite good.
That's why I love it. Yeah, I feel like why are we like, it's so great to use this tool to be able to focus on content more than organization. It's kind of, yeah. So
I'll just touch on a little bit what Keith asked about how students are accessing. We don't have hard numbers, but we do see that a good amount of students are using the Canvas app, and they're also getting notifications about their courses sent through the app, so to their mobile devices. So that's just something that, you know, wasn't available with GauchoSpace. There was a convoluted way you could do that, but that Canvas app we've heard from students is very popular and very helpful for them to stay kind of apprised of all those things you guys mentioned.
Yeah, so the next question here is about kind of using, if you reused your GauchoSpace materials in Canvas. And so if you did, you know, take your GauchoSpace materials and bring them into Canvas and modify them there, what was that experience like? Was it difficult for you to reuse your GauchoSpace materials that you had created previously in Canvas? And we'll start with you, Bruce.
The answer is yes, it was difficult. My first import came in as a mess, and I mean, it was all there, but it needed so much reorganization that I actually started over from scratch. And that was in the fall. And then in the winter quarter, I just started from scratch. I didn't even try to import. So I was really just not happy with what I got. Maybe there's a way to do it more efficiently with a better one-to-one mapping, but I didn't see that. So that's where I am now. But I guess it's a one-time transition. And then now my courses are in there and I'll just be updating them.
Yeah, that's good to know. What about you, Kate? Did you reuse any of your materials?
My memory is so bad because this was a year ago. I can't remember anything like that far back. But I think part of the reason is I think I made my TA do it. Not the whole import, but I think we just reconstructed it a little bit, kind of like Bruce. So again, I don't know that is maybe it does work better with certain courses, but I think the way I had things set up in GauchoSpace, it just wasn't really one-to-one, and I just had the TA kind of work through it and then checked her work.
Excellent.
So yeah, I don't remember exactly how I did it, truthfully. Sorry.
Yeah. Keith?
Yeah, I did not do the importing. I tried, I think, like Bruce, and it was just a mess. So I reverted back to just copy pasting from a lot of my materials. And that also gave me a chance to kind of see what wasn't necessary any longer in Canvas. Certain things that highlighted dates or certain news announcements that could be shifted off. So and one thing that I would recommend in this situation actually is taking the material that you have from GauchoSpace, putting it in a separate repository. For instance, I use an app called Notion. I put it there, and taking and modifying any data that I need there, updating it, and then putting it back into Canvas at that time. And yeah, it wasn't a big deal. It's just, it wasn't click here and click there and it's done.
And I'll just mention, I think all of your experiences haven't involved the migrated courses that we migrated into GauchoSpace or into Canvas from GauchoSpace. And some of that organizational piece that isn't coming over sometimes, depending on how you used your GauchoSpace course. Generally, we're finding it's a much cleaner transition to use those migrated courses. So just to plug the migrated courses as people start making that transition.
I mean, I think the thing is part of it. I mean, this is building up what you're saying, guys. Part of it is what the things I can do in Canvas, I just couldn't do in GauchoSpace. So I had to recreate them in Canvas. Like I couldn't have that kind of organization that I can do in GauchoSpace. Or sorry, yeah, I couldn't. Part of the migration was that it's just a different, like Keith was saying too, it's like a different it's a different way of using the course. I mean, to me, this could be different with the migrations, but to me, it's still, even though I have to do a lot of it from scratch, it's still worth the time because it's so much easier to use it now. I'm sorry that people have to do that investment. It was really a little annoying at the time, but it's totally, to me, it was totally worth it. That's why I'm like the evangelical for Canvas, because I do think it's way easier in the long run.
Maybe I could add something to that. I would say that for me, my grad seminars are pretty simple. It's just a lot of reading and a place for discussion and a paper at the end for the most part. So that's really easy. It's the lower division classes, well, undergraduate classes in general that have a lot of moving parts where there's quizzes and lots of different kinds of content that I found to not work so well.
Yeah, and to kind of Kate's point, the organizational structure is just very different. You know, with a GauchoSpace backup, it'll bring your materials over, but it does come down to kind of understanding how Canvas organizes and kind of moving those things into how they're going to be organized in Canvas, whereas they were kind of shown differently in GauchoSpace. Just a little bit to that point.
But it's better in Canvas is the
Right.
thing. The organization's easier and better. So that's why I was like, I'm not too mad about it. That's my feeling about it. Again, just the way I teach, it worked better for me.
The next question, just a little bit more to kind of how your courses were taught in Canvas. If you can talk about how has Canvas impacted your teaching and the way you engage with your students, if it has at all. So I'll start with Kate.
Sorry, I'm muted. Okay, let's see. I think again, let me see how to say this. I think again, I'm able to just really well organize the course so the students can just work through the material, and it just decreases the amount of questions coming at me in the TA about the bureaucracy of the course, and increases our ability to actually interact about the material. And I think it also decreases the students' anxiety about what's happening because they know exactly what's coming up and when it's coming up, which also I think makes them able to focus on the material a little bit more. And again, I really like the I really like the discussion boards on Canvas. I mean, I don't use them that much actually, but I have the students use them in class actually. Like I have them use them live in class they have a small group that they're like with all quarter, and then they can like work on they can discuss things, post things to the discussion board in class, and they can talk in class live. So it's like I've integrated the discussion, the online discussion with like face-to-face discussion, I think in a way that students actually interact in real life now, like through texting and through social media. So they're used to like that kind of interfacing both ways. And so I just find Canvas really easy to use, really easy to recreate that kind of interaction in the classroom. I use the discussion boards in the classroom is what I'm saying, which I never did in GauchoSpace because I could never understand them. And then also, I don't know if this is a function of Canvas too. I've also kind of started doing that thing where they just do a lot of prep work before they come to class. Like I have them take little reading quizzes and stuff before they come to class. And it's just so much easier to do all that stuff on Canvas that they're just come to class when we're prepared because they're sort of doing a lot of little like preparation things before class, and it's really clear and it's all linked in there. You can link everything in. It's just like, I think there's just this, I can play around with the structure of my class more easily and sort of see what works better in terms of like, I guess they call it flipping the classroom, like doing stuff before class happens and also integrating the Canvas discussion tool and stuff in the class. I'm saying the same things twice, but in summary, I'm just sort of like using that site. The site just makes it easier to kind of experiment with different kinds of interactions and different ordering of material and stuff. The cost of migration is a little bit higher. I mean, it costs something to migrate in terms of my time, but now that I'm in Canvas, the cost of experimenting in terms of my time is way lower because I can just try something. It's really easy. It's intuitive. And then if it doesn't work, I can ditch it, or so I'm just trying new things more, I think. Does that make sense? So I think that the students like that because I'm sort of able to respond to what they like and what's working for them.
And easy to revert back if not.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying. Like I felt with GauchoSpace, I could never, like it took me so long to figure out how to do anything new that I would do it and then I would just be doing that for three quarters because it was like, oh, I can't learn something new. But here I can try new things and then revert back because it just feels more intuitive. That's what I would say. Sorry, that took me a long time to get there, but that's the summary of what I would say. Yeah.
And Keith, any changes to how Canvas has impacted your teaching and engagement of students?
Yeah, I would say for the face-to-face classes, it hasn't impacted it almost at all. But the online courses, since our department has launched these online courses about the same time that Canvas came along, it has just been good because it's the base of what we use as our congregation, our platform. and everything's gone fluidly. So there's not too many complaints. There are little hiccups here and there, but as the one meeting spot for most things, it serves the purpose.
And Bruce.
Yeah, I'll be brief. It's the same. It hasn't changed what I do at all, with the one exception that we've noted before, which is that I spend less time explaining how the class, the administrative parts of the class.
Great, and so we are on to our last prepared question here, and then Brett has a few questions he has ready from the audience. But what advice would you give your colleagues that are using Canvas for the first time this fall? And if there are any specific resources or support avenues that you might recommend. So we'll start with you, Keith.
I did not know about the Canvas resources from our school, so I'd say to visit those first before anything. But I have several things that I can hammer through really quickly. First, design for your students, not for you. It's very easy for us to say, I like this, I want to do this. This seems intuitive to me, but keep in mind your students. This is hypersensitive for us because we primarily teach with international students. It's very easy to wireframe, to draw something out, a plan before you build into Canvas. It'll save you a ton of time, just like a rough draft. Don't get frustrated and don't overcomplicate things. And I would echo what Kate had to say earlier. Just try things out quarter to quarter and don't be afraid to use those things. And this is my one thing that you can do today when you do something, because it has come up in my class. There is going to be a list of components in your navigation on the side panel of your own course. If you're not using something, not using Google Drive or Nectar or something like that, then you can go into system settings and hide that activity or whatever you want, that functionality, because students will click on it. And then they'll ask you what that is, and then you'll have to figure it out. Just hide it from the get-go. And it really simplifies. For instance, my class, I think I use about 4 or 5 of those functionalities. It simplifies it for the students. They don't see 16 different things. They see 4 different things, and it just makes things very easy.
Perfect. Bruce, what about you? Any advice that you would give your colleagues that are new to Canvas for the first time?
I would say just jump in and experiment a bit, and then get a training, an hour training. It's like I learned more in that 1 hour training than any 1 hour training on anything I can remember in the last few years. It's like really action packed. I had to go. I really was taking notes as fast as I could, and that I at the end of that training, I was really sort of feeling quite good. And I would also say, figure out the damn grades thing. It's not intuitive.
Great. And Kate?
I would say, so I would say for sure, there in Canvas, there's a place where you can like get Canvas help, and there's also a place where you can get like LSIT help. And so if you go to the Canvas help, you're going to the corporation that owns the Canvas software or whatever you call it. I don't know what it's called. And then if you go to the LSIT help, you're getting Samantha and Gus, who are really amazing and really fast. So I lean more heavily on them. Like I just email them if I have a question, and whenever me or my TA emails them, they get back so fast to us. So I lean on more on the LSIT help than Canvas help. So I think that's a big difference. And then, but what Gus and Samantha did mention to me earlier is that, but the nice thing about Canvas is they're open 24/7. So if you do have a question on any weekend, I guess I would go to them, but for sure, go to LSIT first. That's one thing. I didn't know about the one-on-one support. I'm going to tap you guys for that. So I would do that for the grade book issue, which apparently I'm not the only one having trouble with. And then, okay, so I am really happy to hear what Bruce said about the trainings being good. I didn't do any trainings. And so I would say, in general, I'm always skeptical about them. And I love that Bruce was so happy with it. And so maybe I will do a training now, but I will say you don't have to. It's if you're willing to spend a little bit of time messing around, you're like a person who just can't get to the training or whatever, you just can't make it work. Like it worked okay for me just to mess around in there and then bug Samantha and Gus a lot. I'm sorry to say that, Samantha and Gus, maybe you don't want me saying that, but I mean, that also worked okay. Like if you're just like, I can't deal with another training right now, but I'm glad to be honest, hearing Bruce, maybe if I couldn't do it differently, maybe I would have just gone to a training. instead of being stubborn. So, but there is really good support on campus for it, which is really nice. So don't be like scared to just email them a question, because it might move you along and then you won't be so frustrated.
Definitely don't be afraid to email us. Yeah. And I'll just elaborate on Keith's point about something you can do today. If you're an instructor, you should have a sandbox site already created in your Canvas account. So that's something you don't need to have an academic course site. You can use that sandbox site just to kind of familiarize and just try out Canvas. It's just a course that only you have access to. So if you're looking to try out Canvas today or something, that's a good starting point as well. All right. So I think we've got some questions.
Yeah, so I'll moderate this part, and I'll throw the questions to either myself, Gus, or Samantha, but if the panelists want to weigh in on anything, then feel free to. So the first question here is, how long does UCSB expect to use this new platform, Canvas, before it transitions to a new software? Great question. We are invested in remaining on Canvas for as long as it kind of meets campus needs. Part of this transition, all of the other UCs have migrated to Canvas already. And as part of this as well, all of the community colleges in the California system are going to be migrating to Canvas. So it's a unified platform that will be familiar to students and instructors across the system. We were on GauchoSpace for at least 15 years. There's no expectation that we'll be moving off of Canvas anytime soon, but we don't have a guarantee for when the next transition will happen. But know that your efforts to learn the new platform are going to be greatly rewarded in the years to come, because it's the choice for the coming future. So the next question I will throw to Samantha, because I think she has a lot of experience in this area, which is, can question banks and quizzes be directly imported into Canvas?
Yeah, absolutely. So for a majority of question types, they do have a one-to-one equivalent in Canvas. So that's multiple choice, fill in the blank, numeric question types, essay question types will come over into Canvas pretty seamlessly. So if you're using those kind of most common question types, there are ways to create a backup of your question bank and quizzes and import those directly into Canvas. There are a few question types that don't come over super cleanly or at all. Those are where there's just no equivalent in Canvas. So things like drag and drop onto an image, essay auto grade. And so what we recommend in those cases is to reach out to us. We're happy to work with you to kind of figure out a different way you could ask that sort of question and kind of bring those materials on. So I would say for most question types, we do see they come over. If you're using some of the more advanced question types like drag and drops, they may not have a one-to-one equivalent, but we're happy to help figure out the best case.
Great. We have a question here about GauchoCast. My students rely heavily on GauchoCast recordings to review lectures. Anyone have experience with embedding in Canvas? So I know that Keith talked about this a little bit, but Gus, do you want to talk about sort of how this works? Or Keith, do you want to chime in on your experience with embedding in GauchoSpace versus Canvas, and if you found that to be difficult in the new platform?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. On GauchoSpace, I don't really remember any difficulty. I don't remember, to be honest. On Canvas, it's as simple as I think your account's linked already. Maybe there's a one-time setup, but it's probably linked already. And there's just a little GauchoCast icon in one of the text boxes, and you can just click on that and search through. Navigating through GauchoCast is another question, but being able to embed it is just selecting that and selecting the video and putting it in.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. Canvas calls it the rich content editor. It's where you have the kind of text box with all the different bells and whistles of how you want to add content. And there's a Panopto icon, which is kind of like, looks like a green recycling icon kind of. But that, when you click on it, will bring you into your GauchoCast account. And so long as you provisioned a folder for your course, you can then select videos and embed them right in that text box, and students will have access to those videos. So pretty seamless, and definitely, if for whatever reason you have any issues, we're always willing and ready to help with those.
All right, great. So we're almost at the hour here. We have one final question that I will try to answer. And then if there are other questions that people have, please email us at help@collaborate.ucsb.edu, and we'll be happy to try to answer those there. So this question is, Canvas imported old versions of my spring 23 courses. I have made changes and updates in those courses that I still teach on GauchoSpace. How can I update the already migrated course on Canvas? So there's a couple of options here. We are migrating the current academic year courses automatically on August 1st. So if you want to wait till August 1st, and you'll see that we've migrated the latest version of your courses, and you can utilize those in the future. The other option is to go and kind of import them into a future course and start modifying the materials that way. But you might want to wait until August 1st to migrate those. All right, so I want to thank our panelists. Thank you, Bruce, Kate, and Keith, for joining us today. And thank everyone. Thanks everyone for joining to ask your questions and listen to our webinar. Again, reach out to us at help@collaborate.ucsb.edu if you need any help in this transition to Canvas. And everyone have a good morning.
Thank you.